Madam Secretary.
There is an amendment number 14 by Senators Wielechowski, Stedman, and Bishop on members' desks.
Senator Wielechowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move amendment number 14.
There's objection.
Yeah, thank you. This is an amendment that I've worked with the co-chairs of the Finance Committee on, and it's in response to the unemployment rate that we have here in Alaska. And the concerns, quite frankly, from the business community that they are having problems getting people to come back to work. Alaska still has a high unemployment rate. I think it's about 6.6%, which is higher than what it was last year before the pandemic, about 1.5% higher, which is thousands of more Alaskans unemployed because of the pandemic still. This is actually based on a number of, quite frankly, Republican proposals, Mr. President. The state of Montana did something identical. In fact, this was based on the proposal by the Republican governor in Montana, Mr. President. And what it does is what it says. It says if you go back, if you're on unemployment as of today, and I picked today because I don't want people rushing to try to game the system, and you go back to work and you stay at work for 4 weeks, you get a $1,200 bonus. It's something that on the federal government side, they have, and there's a document that you all have. You can see this. I put it on your desk. It's called the Return to Work Bonus Initiative. It talks about what they did in Montana. It talks. It's got a press release, and it talks about what the top Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee on the federal level, along with 14 original Republican co-sponsors, Mr. President, introduced to help get Americans back to work. I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. I think it's a good idea. I talked to the Department of Labor. They have no objection to it. This is about getting Alaskans back to work. I think this will help some people in the service industry which are struggling to get people back, and I would urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do you maintain your, by the way, you seem to struggle saying that word Republican, but you're, with practice, you're coming along. Do you maintain your objection, Senator Reinbold? Is there any further objection to amendment number 14? Seeing none, amendment number 14 passes. Madam Secretary.
There is an amendment number 15 by Senator Wielechowski on members' desks.
Senator Wielechowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move amendment number 15.
There's objection.
Okay. This takes a little different tact. This is regarding federal pandemic unemployment benefits. It's the federal government has decided to provide $300 per week supplemental federal pandemic unemployment benefits, and that ends on September 4th. Unfortunately, those benefits have been stopped unilaterally by the governor. This reinstates that program, and I think I'm glad we passed the previous amendment because I think that will alleviate some people in the business community's concern that, hey, people are reluctant to come back to work. I think that's really going to help bring people back to work. But I put another document on your desk. This is it's a number of research reports, studies that have been done, because one of the things that we've heard is, well, people are just sitting at home doing nothing and collecting unemployment benefits. And there are many studies that say that's just not the case. In fact, I've got 3 of them in here that are recent. There's this one from J.P. Morgan Chase and Company Institute, February 2021. By all means, not a liberal organization, Mr. President. And they said in their key takeaway, we find in bold little evidence that elevated unemployment insurance benefits discouraged people from returning to work. And they actually found that this was important to the macroeconomics of the country to keep this program going. They urged the Congress to keep it going. I've got another report from, again, not a liberal organization by any means, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, which analyzed from 2013 to 2019, found exactly the same thing. Our research, if I could read, our research shows that the unemployed exert a high level of effort to find work. This is the Federal Reserve, again, conclusive findings on their part. A third study from Yale University, and it's Yale, say what you want about it, but same exact results, Mr. President. It does not, and I'll just read if I could. We find no evidence that this was during the pandemic, we find no evidence that more generous benefits disincentivized work either at the onset of the expansion or as firms look to return to business over time. I could have gotten many more studies. These were 3 that we found literally in about 5 minutes. There are many, many, many more. I can vouch for that. And what's at stake here? This is federal dollars. This will not cost the state of Alaska anything. Lastly, I've included a fact sheet from the Century Foundation. It's a nonpartisan organization. They do research on these sorts of things. And they actually outline, if you look on the Bates stamp, page 36, I'm sorry, the lower right-hand corner, what's the impact? And they have every state's impact, and they've got Alaska, and there's 38,686 Alaskans who will be impacted by this amendment. The total amount that we're talking about here, $219,322,140. If we pass this amendment, this is probably one of the more significant amendments we can pass this evening. This is an amendment to bring in $219 million in federal receipts to the state of Alaska. That's $139 million in unemployment assistance, and then $80 million in other federal funds. In Alaska, 50% of our budget comes from the federal government. If we take a position, we're going to start turning down federal dollars. That's really going to be a detriment. And I actually think it's going to help small businesses. We're putting $200 million into the economy. That's a huge impact. I think that will help, particularly in areas like Southeast that are hard hit, particular areas, tourism areas, and certainly in my community, and all up and down the rail belt to rural Alaska. I'd urge your support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wielechowski. Senator Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in adamant support to this amendment. To have sympathy for others is one of the top qualities that we possess as human beings, Mr. President. The ability to acknowledge what another person is going through has, and it continues to keep our great nation afloat. In times of both joy and sorrow, Americans have always come together to sympathize with one another. However, I ask each of you, what good is sympathy without the ability to provide support? We can all make a difference in the lives of Alaskans by not only acknowledging that there is a need, by acting to address the need. Providing families and individuals with additional funds should not be a difficult decision at all. We know that need exists. We cannot continue to delay solutions while children continue to go hungry, lights and electricity are cut off, and people are forced onto the streets. In a time where money seems to be plentiful, there still does not seem to be enough money flowing to the people within the communities that we serve. Many may say that the federal stimulus and last year's PFD were sufficient to help those in need. The amendment before us seeks to be a solution. I'm asking you all to support this amendment that would provide Alaskans in need an extra $300 in unemployment insurance. As you prepare yourselves to vote, do not look at unemployment insurance as a handout, but look at it as a hand up for those who need it most. And I want to end my comments with this, and I like saying this because a lot of us are comfortable because our financial situation is great. We have the ability to buy whatever we want, but you have to remember one thing, you may be doing well one day, but just like that, it could be all over with. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gray Jackson. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to express my concern hearing my colleague to my left becoming more and more of a person who cites the Republican Party. I'm becoming concerned about his welfare, and I wanted you to know, though, that I do agree with his comments that to walk away from $200 million plus federal money that could be going into our retail establishments would be a mistake. And one of the benefits of having passed the earlier amendment is that fewer people will take advantage of our unemployment rolls because they'll be going for the incentive instead. And so, in a sense, they actually work complementarily. If you do believe despite the studies that were cited by my colleague, if you do believe that unemployment is a reason for people not going to work, that's been settled with the earlier amendment that we've passed. So this is actually really one that would not only leverage federal money, but would be for those who most need it. So I would encourage people to vote for the green button.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Senator Reinbold.
Not easy to get up and talk in regards to this, but the bottom line is I think we're somewhere around $30 trillion in debt at a federal level. I don't know who's going to pay for all this back. And what's frustrating to me is I go around my district, and even Juneau and Anchorage, they're having a hard time getting people to work. They said that they're getting too many unemployment, and it's easier for people to stay home than go to work. And that's really frustrating. And I personally believe you teach people to fish, you don't just hand them a fish. So I won't be supporting this at this time, even though it is a tough vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Reinbold. Senator von Imhoff? No. Senator Myers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in confusion between this amendment and the last one. Either extra unemployment insurance is keeping people from working, at which point we need the other amendment, the previous amendment, to get them to go back to work, or and if that's the case, then why are we doing this as well? If it's not keeping people from going back to work, then we don't need the previous amendment. So I'm just seeing a little bit of confusion here between the two. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Myers. Further discussion on amendment number 15. Senator Kiehl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll do my best to help the member who sits next to me. Not every area of Alaska is the same. So, Mr. President, the last amendment should address the concerns of those who may be worried that someone is somehow not wanting to work or breaking the law and not taking work they can find. But we've got a lot of communities in Alaska where this summer there are no jobs to be had. I can tell you right now, there's hundreds of people in Skagway who want to be greeting the first ship this week and next. It's not coming. Now, there's hope. But there's hope for August, Mr. President. No jobs now. So those constituents, a $1,200 bonus helps them not one whit. There isn't a job. This amendment helps those Alaskans and Alaskans in those other communities. Helps them pay the grocery bill, helps them pay the rent, the mortgage, the very basics. Unemployment is not rich living. So for those Alaskans, and for the small businesses where they spend those checks, the IGA, the Fairway, Toshko, the Dre, where they buy their fuel, their groceries, I urge a yes vote on Amendment 15.
Thank you, Senator Kiehl. Additional comments on amendment number 15. Wrap up, Senator Wielechowski.
Yeah, just I would add, Mr. President, Alaska has the lowest unemployment insurance rates in the United States. In fact, even with this additional $300, there are still states that pay a higher amount. And we are not the cheapest state in the country. We are an expensive state to live in. And for those who say, well, people are just sitting at home doing nothing, it is a requirement to look for work, and it is a requirement to take work. It is a legal requirement. If there are people out there that are doing that, they are breaking the law. So I would urge your support. This is $219 million in federal funds, Mr. President, and it will help our economy. It'll help our struggling Alaskans. I would urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wielechowski. That brings us to the question. Shall amendment number 15 pass the Senate? Senators may proceed to vote. Has any senator failed to vote? Secretary will lock the roll. Do any senators wish to change their vote? Secretary will record and tally the vote.
10 yeas, 10 nays.
And so on a vote of 10 yeas and 10 nays, amendment number 15 has failed to pass the Senate. Brief it ease.